Oh, what's going on, guys? Gamer Dude back once again, bringing you some more informative gaming news. But before we begin, y'all know the routine, or at least I hope you do by now. If you aren't new to the channel, please make sure you smash that like button and drop me a subscribe, because it would just be a good deed of the day. Same applies if you are a returning viewer. Now then, it was inevitable, but it looks like, as I'm sure, actually before we begin, as I'm sure you're all aware, right now pretty much all of Hollywood is on strike. Writers and actors, disputing over pay rights. But now, on top of that, it appears that the video game industry will indeed be joining those strikes. And of course, it was completely inevitable. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing what this means for games that have already been given release dates and everything in between, etc., etc. So it's looking like developers that are going to be affected by this strike will include some big ones such as Rockstar Games and Insomniac, and also potentially others. Now, the strike guild that hundreds of thousands of actors belong to, including major movie and TV stars, is preparing for a potential video game industry strike. Now, earlier this year, as I'm sure you all know, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, the Writers Guild of America went on strike after being unable to negotiate terms for better pay and conditions with studios for their actors and writers. The writers might have been on strike since the start of May, and as of right now, as of recording this video, they still are. And it is completely unclear when the strike will actually be resolved. Now, in July, the Strike Guild authorized the strike against major Hollywood studios, putting a stop to certain big budget film and TV productions such as Deadpool 3, which is a bit of a Debbie Downer because I was really looking forward to that film. Considering its release date was pushed forward, now it's most definitely going to be pushed back. Anyway, some exceptions have been granted for studios that aren't being struck, so it would stand to reason the same applies for certain game developers should they join the strike. Meaning, because Insomniac will likely be affected by the strike, meaning Spider-Man 2 possibly won't be affected because it's already got a release date, the game's complete. Aside from day one patches, I'm sure there's really nothing else to be done on that game. So, as far as Spider-Man 2 is concerned, that is safe. But anything else that has a release date further from then could be in severe trouble of being affected by the strike, because as you know, release dates, they tend to shuffle around a little bit, but when a strike is involved, if someone has said, oh yeah, this is releasing on that day, and then someone goes on strike, it's most definitely no longer releasing on that day, unless, of course, it's already finished. But yeah, moving on. With all that said, it does indeed look like the video game industry could be next. The Strike Guild board has voted unanimously to send out strike authorizations from its members for the video game industry. This means members would vote on whether they would want to strike or not should negotiations with the video game industry fall through. Because let's not forget, these games, although they take years to develop, they require writers for the scripts. They require actors for the mocap that's now involved. They require a lot. And if they're not getting paid as much as they feel they should be getting paid, or if they're not getting paid as much as anyone else is getting paid, then they are well within their rights to strike. But yeah, this does mean members would vote on whether or not they do want to strike should negotiations with any type of thing fall through. Now, as I was talking about earlier, notable companies that would be struck do include Insomniac Games, Warner Bros. Montreal, Disney, Activision, EA Games, Epic Games, Take-Two Interactive, as I'm sure aware, that's Rockstar's parent company. Now, the Strike Guild is seeking better wages, protections against AI, and better working conditions such as vocal stress protections for those in the gaming industry. Now, negotiations with the before mentioned companies will start on September the 26th. So the chance of a gaming industry strike will possibly become more of a possibility by the end of this month. Now, I've got a tweet up here. It is from the Strike Authorization Guild, SAG-AFTRA. It states, SAG-AFTRA votes to send strike authorization to members ahead of negotiations with video game companies such as Activision, EA, Warner Bros. Montreal, and more. So the fact that they're sending out representation, really, members of this guild to speak to these video game industries means that they're on, they're kind of on board with it. Otherwise they'd have just been like, no, we're not interested. We're fine with what we get. But you also have to remember that, as I was mentioning earlier, a lot of these games now, the mocap actors, a lot of them are very famous voices. Christopher Judge, God of War, for example. He was on television long before he was doing video games. Nolan North, Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson, they're all very famous actors. And, they're currently striking with the actors and writers at the moment. So any games that they would be involved in, they wouldn't be because they're striking. So you kind of see where I'm going with that. At least I hope you do. Otherwise, I'm just talking gibberish. In which case, I apologize. But I have a quote here as well. It says, "Here we go again. Now our interactive video game agreement is at a stalemate too. Once again, we are facing employer greed and disrespect. Once again, artificial intelligence is putting our members in jeopardy of reducing their opportunity to work. And once again, SAG-AFTRA is standing up to tyranny on behalf of its members." Now, that came directly from the SAG-AFTRA president, Fran Drescher? Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. Otherwise, I'll be here all day trying to pronounce that. Do apologize in advance. But it basically means they're striking out. They're saying, no, not on our watch. That everybody is entitled to equal pay. Everybody is entitled to be treated as equally as everybody else in that same industry. And I do completely agree. I've had jobs myself, and I've been underpaid compared to someone that had been there, 3 years longer than me. And, I'd just started, I'd be on minimum wage and they'd be on a higher wage than me. And it's like, well, we're doing the same job. Why is he getting paid more than me? I know I've just started, but we're doing the same job. So I should be on the same rate of pay. And that is basically what SAG-AFTRA is trying to do. They are trying to bring that into effect. So now, you're all probably wondering what video games and companies will be impacted by the strike. Considering the last video game strike was in 2016, this would be a big deal, especially considering now the next-gen consoles are really starting to take off. They're really coming into their own. They had a rocky start because of COVID, and then they started bouncing back, and now they're going to bounce down. So I'm wondering myself where they're going to go. But yeah, the companies that SAG-AFTRA have currently mentioned are some of the largest video game developers and publishers out there, meaning a number of huge games would be impacted in some way. These games include the long-rumoured and long-anticipated Grand Theft Auto 6 from Take-Two Interactive. I know at this point Grand Theft Auto 6 is just a vague myth and rumour, and yeah, we got those leaked screenshots from a 16-year-old kid in his parents' basement, which is more than what Rockstar gave us in the last 10 years. But the point still stands. That game, even in active development, will be severely affected. The Iron Man game from EA will also be affected. Call of Duty, the standalone Wonder Woman game from Warner Bros. Montreal, Marvel's Wolverine, unfortunately, from Insomniac Games. So we were kind of hoping that that would have gotten a late 2024, early 2025 release. But depending on how long this strike lasts, it could go into late 2025 now, or mid 2025. Who knows? I'm just speculating on that. As mentioned earlier, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 possibly won't be affected by the strike, despite Insomniac Games being mentioned. Some people have been on forums really scared about this, saying, oh, well, I've already pre-ordered it. They've already given us a release date. We've already seen everything the game has to offer. They've given us all this, that, and this. So if they postponed it now, there'd be a lot of peeved off fans. Maybe a couple of cancelled pre-orders here and there. But yeah, as the game is less than a month away from releasing, when a strike could feasibly take place, it does seem unlikely that Spider-Man 2 will be delayed. I mean, they would be well within their rights to do so, but it does seem unlikely. Now, as I mentioned, the last video game strike was in 2016, and a strike against 11 video game publishers and developers, including some of the ones I've already mentioned, was initiated. Now, that strike lasted a staggering 340 days, so almost the entire year. And get this, it was also the longest strike in the history of SAG-AFTRA. And that's a big deal, because if it lasts as long as it did last time, especially in the film and TV industry, then film and TV and video games are going to be dead for the next year or so. There's going to be nothing produced except by those who aren't affected, which are usually the low-tier, low-level stuff, which no one really watches or cares about. So yeah, you can see where this is going. It's going to be a bad year for film, TV, and games, unfortunately. So get used to watching them DVDs again, folks, because that's all you're going to have. But yeah, the union asked for residuals for video game projects, but the studios pushed back against these requests as they were deemed trivializing. Now, the work of the developers themselves was also deemed trivializing. Now, although they eventually did come to an agreed conclusion, they were not able to secure any residuals, but instead got the studios to agree to a sliding pay scale and a variety of other changes to how projects are disclosed to actors auditioning for a role. The strike didn't appear to cause any delays in projects back then. However, the video game Life is Strange Before the Storm did replace its lead actress, Ashley Birch, in the role of Chloe for the first episode due to the strike action. Now, whether or not similar things will happen to incoming games, not a clue. Like I said, Marvel Spider-Man 2 is likely to be unaffected due to the fact that that's done. That's finished. As I said, the worst thing we can get from Spider-Man 2 now is a day one patch, and that's providing they even do a day one patch, if it even needs a day one patch. Most games get them, but you know what I'm saying. But other notable developers that could potentially be joining the strike are Embracer Group, even though they're still active, and it's a big deal that they're still active considering the recent disasters they've put out for us. I'm not going to go into detail on that either. Naughty Dog, as mentioned, Take-Two Interactive and Rockstar Games, Activision, EA Games. There's so many that could be joining it. Like I said, last time it was about 16 that joined, so who knows how many it will be this time around. But yeah, anyway, I usually like to end these on a positive note, but there is really nothing positive about this, I'm afraid. So do let me know in the comments what you guys think. Obviously, I am completely for them striking. It is a bit of a downer on our behalf as gamers and fans of the films and TV shows that are not going to be produced during this strike, but I am all for it. they deserve equal pay to everybody else in the same industry that they are working. I have nothing against that. I'm not going to dispute it. Never will, because I've worked myself, so I know the feels. I am there with them. If I could be there with them holding up banners, I would be. If I was an actor myself or a writer, I would be supporting it wholeheartedly. Because, the whole world is just run off money now. You can't even take a breath of air without expecting to pay someone a fiver for it. But yeah, so once again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think it's really going to put a dent in the gaming and film and TV industry for quite a while, or do you think it'll be resolved a lot quicker than past strikes? Let me know your thoughts down below. So yeah, that's going to be it for the video then. So I want to thank you all for stopping by once again. I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned for the future weeks, because there's a couple of things coming from me. We've had some new game updates, so I'm going to be covering those. Going to get back to live streaming at some point, but my internet's been playing up again, so I'm not too trusting on it doing a live stream at the moment. But we'll try it. We'll do a test stream and we'll see where it goes. And of course, hopefully, nothing changes on this. Spider-Man 2 is due out in less than 2 months. I have the collector's edition, and I will be doing an unboxing video for the collector's edition, as well as live streams for the game. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be a lot of Spider-Man content. I was super hyped for the first game and did a lot of content for the first game. Even did a massive countdown to Spider-Man PS4, like uploaded every cutscene from every past Spider-Man game in the lead up to that release. So I'm thinking of doing something special for it the day before it releases. So stay tuned. There's a lot to come. There's a lot to come. So yeah, that's me done then. So I want to thank you all for stopping by once again. I really do appreciate it. This has been Gamer Dude. Happy gaming, and I will catch you all in the next one, guys.